You having problems with slugs eating all your garden plants? You're wondering how in the world can I control them? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Hey guys, welcome back to another slightly rednecked video. Again, my name is Chris. If you're not familiar with this channel, I help you to produce your own meat, eggs, and vegetables from your backyard, your balcony, your deck, your garage, or heck, even a spare room in your house if that's the way you want to do it. What we're looking at here right now are my pepper plants that have been hit pretty hard by the slugs, actually. Some of them worse than others. And I've just kind of been overrun with them this year. Usually it's not a big problem, but we've had enough rain and things this year that the slugs have become a huge problem for me. And they're starting to decimate my garden. They've eaten a lot of my crops. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to bring you in close here. I'm going to show you exactly what the damage kind of looks like here. And then I'm going to talk about some ways that you can control slugs in your garden and what I'm going to do about it. Okay, this is a jalapeno plant, and you can see the leaves have been, something's been chewing on them all the way around the edges. That's pretty typical of what you'll see with slug damage. Either that or they'll have holes in the leaves, kind of like this one does. And they've done a pretty good job on this, but they haven't managed to kill this plant. It's probably going to come back and it's going to be just fine. I've got some here down at the end that are probably a little bit worse. Let me show you them. Okay, definitely worse. I don't know if you can even see that. This was a pepper plant. It was about, it was bushed out about like that, and they have just eaten it down to pretty much nothing. It doesn't even look like that thing is going to survive. They've just really done a job on this plant here. Let me take you around. I'll show you a couple more spots. Now hopefully this shows up pretty good. You can see all my strawberries. You can see these little holes. Looks like something just took a bite out of them, basically. That's pretty much what slugs do to them. Just take a big bite out of the strawberries. I mean, it takes them a little bit of time to do that, but that's the kind of damage you're looking at with fruit. And you can kind of see, let me adjust this camera a little bit. I'll show you the leaves. You can kind of see on the leaves too, that's pretty typical of slug damage. Just big holes in your leaves. Now I haven't done too bad on the strawberries. I mean, I've still got a few that I can harvest off here, but most of them have holes in them. You can see on this leaf here, I mean, they've just almost destroyed these leaves, just chewed them up beyond belief. All right, so I've shown you a little bit of the slug damage that's been done. Honestly, I pulled out a lot of the plants that I've already damaged already because a lot of it was the early season crops, the lettuce, the broccoli, the Brussels sprouts, some of that kind of stuff. But let's talk about what you can do to control the slugs. And first, before I even get into that, let me just say, it's usually not a problem for me. I don't mind so much that the slugs get in there, eat a leaf or two or a little bit on a couple of the plants. Usually they don't overrun me. Usually it's not a big issue. They can have one plant, I don't care. But this year it's been really bad. They've just overrun. They've eaten my my cucumber sprouts that sprouted up. They've eaten those down to nothing, killed 2 or 3 of those plants, and they're getting overpopulated. So I do have to do something to kind of control them this year. Usually I don't have to. The natural kind of predators will keep them in check, and that's my preferred method of controlling them. So I don't just react whenever I find one little spot on a leaf that's been chewed up or anything like that. It's when it becomes a widespread problem. That's whenever I need to control them. Now they do have lots of natural predators. If you have toads, garter snakes, king snakes, some of those kinds of things, they will eat those slugs. They feed on them fairly regularly. Some kinds of beetles do as well. Birds, there are certain types of birds, especially thrushes and some of those things, they'll feed on the slugs as well. But if they're not keeping them in check, like in my garden, I just don't have enough predators or I've been overrun with them, there's been an imbalance of some kind, then you will need to resort to other forms of control. And this is where I would caution you. Don't go into a full broad spectrum like pesticide, like 7 or diatomaceous earth or any of those kinds of things, because that kills everything, not just slugs, kills everything. And what you're going to end up is you're always going to be relying on that stuff because you don't give a chance for the predator bugs and those kinds of things to build up and to keep those things in check. Give you an example of that real quick before I get into the specifics of slug control. I had a bad aphid problem a year or so ago. And I let that go for a little while, and pretty soon ladybugs just ladybugs all over the place, all over my garden. Haven't had an aphid problem since then. Nature's keeping it in check for me. So just keep that in mind when it goes to using any kind of pesticide, any kind of bug control. You want to try to be as species specific as possible. All right, a couple of things that will kind of help with controlling slugs in your garden. One thing is, slugs will not crawl across copper, or they very much dislike crawling across copper. So if you had some copper wire or something like that, if you were just working with a small area, like maybe you had a planting table, I had 4 legs, wrap a couple of pieces of copper wire around the legs, slugs will not crawl up that to get to your plants. Now in a garden my size, that's impractical. That's a ton of copper, I just can't do it. If you just had a couple of plants though, you could easily put a copper ring around it, something like that, that would kind of keep the slugs out. But again, impractical for my garden, doesn't work. Eggshells are known to work pretty well. You crush them up, they don't like crawling across the rough surface. But again, that's a ton of eggshells in my garden. Impractical for me, but if you're working in a smaller area, a small flower bed, something like that, that could be an effective solution for you there as well. You can build traps for your slugs, and that's pretty simple to do. Beer is a great slug attractant. Get a a good fermented beer, like a Guinness or an ale of some kind, something like that. Mix it about 50% with water. Put it in you can put it in a bowl, a small dish, something like that. The slugs will crawl in there to drink the beer, and then they end up drowning in the beer. But in my opinion, that gets really nasty really quick. I don't like having to dump those things out. It becomes a mess. Plus, again, in my size garden, that's a lot of beer I'd have to use up. So not really something that I really prefer to do, but it can be done pretty easily. You can resort to just hand picking them. Come out at night with a flashlight, look on the undersides of your leaves and those kinds of things and try to find them. There are some slug traps as well, like grapefruit halves. You lay them upside down, the slugs will crawl under them during the day. Then you just go out and you pick it up and throw the whole thing away with all the slugs and everything attached to it, Those kinds of things work as well, but again, that's a little bit of work in my size garden, not really what I'm going to resort to. So I'm going to actually resort to a pesticide. Well, I guess you could call it a pesticide. Let me show you what I'm going to use. All right, this is my preferred method of slug control. This is a Corey's brand. There's a couple of different brands of slug killer. This is Corey's brand. What I like about it is its active ingredient is sodium ferric EDTA. It's a fairly new chemical. It's pretty much an iron chemical compound, whatever. Fairly new to the market. It's a little bit different than some of the ones that worked in the past. First of all, this is pet safe, so you can sprinkle this on the ground and then immediately let your animals in. You don't have to worry about it. It only targets snails and slugs. Well, I guess mollusks in general, so you wouldn't want to dump it in a creek or it might affect some of those kinds of things, but you get the point. It only affects snails and slugs. It is still considered organic control, so even if you are a certified organic gardener, you can use this and still be considered certified organic gardening. Again, the best thing I like about this is that it targets specifically slugs and snails. It doesn't really kill anything else. It's not harmful to anything else. That doesn't mean you want to pour a bowl of this and let your dog eat it. I mean, there could be, the high concentrations, there could be a lot of it. And use as directed. This only requires a half teaspoon, I think. Let me check. Yeah, a half teaspoon per square yard. It's a very small amount. And you don't put it directly on the plants, you put it around the edges of the plants. Don't pile it up in a pile, broadcast it, just sprinkle it out. It doesn't take much at all. The slugs are attracted to it, they'll eat it, and as soon as they eat it, they stop eating everything else, and then they die within a couple of days. Now, I only use this for a short while, get the population in check, and then I don't need it anymore. That's what I really like about this kind of stuff right here. Now, I'll put a link where you can get your own online at Amazon. It will be an affiliate link, so that means if you order from there, I will make $1 or $2, which I really appreciate, but if that bothers you, go look it up on your own. Again, just look for sodium ferric EDTA. Make sure I got that right. EDTA. I always got to read it, make sure I get it right. I'm not a chemist or anything, so look for that. That's the active compound. That's the one that you want. There are a couple of other slug killers on the market that use different things. Some of those can be harmful to fish, to birds, to your pets, your wildlife. Some of them aren't effective after it rains. This stuff works really well. It lasts up to 3 weeks, I think. I want to say 3-4 weeks. Yeah, remains effective after a rain or sprinkling. I can't remember. Yeah, about 3 weeks. It says 2 weeks on the package. So 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to get effective treatment out of this. That's usually all I need. Get the population in check, and then I'll just watch my plants after that. And if I start seeing new damage on it, or a lot of new damage, I should say, again, I'm not worried about 1 or 2 leaves getting chewed up or one plant getting chewed up for that. But if it's starting to get widespread damage like it has been, then I'll apply some more and just to get it in check. That's all I need to do. So anyway, that's my preferred method of slug control. I've given you a couple of options. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Let me know in the comments below if you found something that's worked effectively for you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. And as always, God bless.